The Map by Ruba Qewar. Chapter 6. The Dangers of Christian Evangelism. Political Evangelism. Why support Israel? Why do we see Christian converts from an Islamic background call for supporting Israel? The converts are the winning ticket for Christian agencies. They are the victims that are used to slander the Muslims. Christians believe in Jesus' second coming and the ruling of Israel. All the other nations will be blessed by Israel. Therefore, they believe that there is no peace except by the coming of the kingdom of heaven. Christian beliefs of war. There is not any modern country today that is ruled by the Lord. Therefore, there is no Western country that claims to be Christian, even if their people are conservative. However, there are some verses in the Bible that incite the people of Israel to use violence, because the Lord is their king. These laws are used to serve political aims in our days. For example, in Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 6, it says, "Utterly slay old men, young men, maidens, little children, and women, but do not touch any man on whom is the mark. And you shall start from my sanctuary." So they started with the elders who were before the temple. We find that the one who commands to kill is the Lord himself. There is a sense of harshness and severe violence in this verse. Jesus also commanded people to kill. In Matthew chapter 10, verses 34 to 37, it says, "Do not think that I come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the members of his household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." Some interpreters may say that it does not discuss current times, but that it is about to happen in the future when the Christ comes and kills the Antichrist by the sword. Anyone who refuses the ruling of the Christ will be punished and killed because the Christians believe he is the judge. These scriptures are used by some extremists and fundamentalists to justify war. It started with the Crusades and it continues till this day. The political situation harbored the increase of these religious ideologies. Various churches helped to establish the state of Israel in the Middle East. They use the verse from the Bible that the Jews will take over Jerusalem. However, the plan of God cannot be modified and manipulated by humans. Jesus says in John chapter 18, verse 36, Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." We also find the New Testament uses military terms such as 2 Timothy chapter 2, 3 to 5. It says, "Let no one in any way deceive you, for it will not come unless the apostasy comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, displaying himself as being God. Do you not remember that while I was still with you, I was telling you these things?" By the increase of the numbers of Christians on the planet, the idea of integrating the state with religion emerged. The first person to discuss the idea in the 4th century was Augustine. He announced that the Roman Empire would become Christian, and there were Christian civilians who participated in the securing of the country. The debate was whether the Christians could participate in war and if it's obligatory. Augustine wrote books about the just war. He commanded the Christians to defend their land, saying that war is supposed to be for spreading peace and establishing justice. In his letter, he said, open quote, "If we assume that God forbids us to participate in the war because Jesus said not to resist evil, the answer is God does not want us to physically strive, but spiritually. It is a spiritual war against Satan. Moses judged the people and granted them the death penalty, not because he hates them, but with the motivation of love. When Paul casted the evil demons violently, he did it out of love. No one can judge and punish anyone if he doesn't take the hatred out of his heart. Loving enemies is a commandment from God. However, this love does not make the war of mercy exceptional for doing goodness." Close quote. This was the opinion of Augustine. Well, nice words, right? He used the biblical scriptures to serve his political aims. In 1095, at the Council of Clermont, Urban II was the first one whom encouraged to free the Middle East from the unclean people, meant the Muslims and Jews. He shook their feelings by saying that the Turks are persecuting the Christians severely, raping women and destroying churches. Urban incited them to unite the churches to face the enemy. He claimed that anyone who joins the war will be forgiven by God. The people stood and shouted, "God wills it, God wills it." In the 15th century, when the West invented the firearm, another revolution rose against the war by some who called for humanity, such as Thomas More and Erasmus Rotterdam. Rotterdam used his oratory skills to criticize violence. He called for reformation and for the people to study the Bible and follow the life of the Christ. His writings criticized the theologians who used the name of the religion to justify war. In spite of all the divisions, what happened in the Middle Ages, the reformers did not establish peace. Some called to use weapons, which resulted in major civil war among the Christians. It was permissible to use weapons in the name of Christianity until the 20th century. The Protestants, such as Lutheran, Zwingli, and Calvinists, agreed on using violence in war. The religious war continued from 1550 to 1648. One denomination rejected using the weapons, the Anabaptists, then Quaker and Pentecostals. They called for the state to separate from religion. One leader of the Anabaptists said, open quote, "The Christ is our shelter. The patience is our defense. The Word of God, the Bible, is our sword. And our sincerity to Christ is our victory." Close quote. In the end, there are three different opinions concerning Christians participating in war. There are the activists who encourage Christians to participate in war. Then there are the selectivists who think war should be for establishing justice and removing oppression. However, the pacifists reject any participation in war because no one wins in a war. Finally, the Western Church's incitement for participating in war was their motivation to fulfill the prophecies of the second coming of the Christ. They believe of the Christ. They believe that their support for Israel is a support for the Lord, who will come again and rule the world.